The story of the Jordan River's division is one of the pivotal moments in the journey of the Israelites, marking their entrance into the Promised Land after years of wandering in the wilderness. It demonstrates God's power, His faithfulness to His promises, and the importance of obedience and faith. The Israelites had been on a long journey, led by Moses, to reach the land God promised to their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 40 years in the wilderness, a new generation of Israelites was poised to cross the Jordan River and claim the land of Canaan. However, Moses had passed away, and leadership had transitioned to Joshua, his faithful servant and successor. God reassured Joshua of His presence, saying, "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you." Joshua 1:5. This promise set the stage for the miraculous events that would follow, as Joshua prepared to lead the people into uncharted territory. The Jordan River, flowing from the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea, served as a natural boundary between the Israelites and the Promised Land. However, the river was at flood stage during this time, making it particularly treacherous. Its waters overflowed their banks, creating a seemingly insurmountable obstacle for the massive caravan of men, women, children, livestock, and belongings. Despite the daunting challenge, Joshua instructed the people to prepare for their crossing, telling them, "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you." Joshua 3:5. The Israelites were called to purify themselves spiritually and physically, symbolizing their readiness to witness God's power. God provided specific instructions to Joshua for crossing the river. The priests, who carried the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest representing God's presence among His people, were to lead the way. The ark contained the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, a jar of manna, and Aaron's rod that budded. God told Joshua, "When you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river." As soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap. Joshua 3:8-13. This promise echoed the parting of the Red Sea during the Exodus, reaffirming God's unchanging power and presence with His people. Early the next morning, the Israelites broke camp and moved to the edge of the Jordan. The priests, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, stepped forward into the raging waters. As soon as their feet touched the water's edge, the miracle unfolded. The water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away, at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, while the water flowing down to the Sea of the Arabah, the Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The riverbed, once submerged beneath a torrent of water, became dry ground. The priests stood firm in the middle of the river, holding the Ark of the Covenant, as the entire nation of Israel, hundreds of thousands of people, crossed safely to the other side. The event confirmed that God was fulfilling His covenant promise to Abraham to give his descendants the land of Canaan. Just as He had parted the Red Sea for their ancestors, He now repeated the miracle for the new generation. God used this moment to establish Joshua as His chosen leader. The people saw that God was with Joshua as He had been with Moses, strengthening their trust in Him. The stopping of the river demonstrated God's supreme authority over creation, reinforcing the Israelites' faith in His ability to lead them to victory in the battles ahead. The Israelites had to trust God's instructions, even though the task seemed impossible. Their obedience to step into the water before it parted was an act of faith, showing their reliance on God's guidance. After the entire nation had crossed, God commanded Joshua to have one man from each of the 12 tribes take a stone from the middle of the Jordan River, where the priests had stood. These stones were to be set up as a memorial at their campsite in Gilgal. Joshua explained the purpose of the memorial. "In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them, 'Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God." Joshua 4:21-24. This memorial ensured that future generations would remember God's faithfulness and power. Once the people had crossed and the memorial stones were collected, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant left the riverbed. As soon as their feet touched the dry land on the other side, the waters of the Jordan returned to their flood stage, flowing as they had before. This timing emphasized that the miracle was entirely God's doing and not a coincidence. The miraculous crossing had a profound impact, not only on the Israelites but also on the surrounding nations. The Bible records that the kings of the Amorites and Canaanites were filled with fear when they heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan River. Joshua 5:1. For the Israelites, this event strengthened their faith in God and prepared them for the challenges ahead, including the conquest of Jericho. It marked a new chapter in their history as they stepped into the land flowing with milk and honey. The division of the Jordan River is more than just a historical event. It is a testament to God's power, faithfulness, and ability to fulfill His promises. It highlights the importance of faith and obedience, even in the face of overwhelming obstacles. The division of the Jordan River is one of the most remarkable events recorded in the Bible, signifying God's supernatural intervention in the lives of His people. This story is found in the book of Joshua, specifically chapters 3 and 4, and marks the moment when the Israelites finally entered the Promised Land, a goal long awaited for generations. The Jordan River served as a geographical and symbolic boundary between the Israelites and the land of Canaan. Stretching approximately 156 miles from Mount Hermon in the north to the Dead Sea in the south, the river was an essential water source for the region. During harvest season, the Jordan would swell and overflow its banks, becoming a powerful and treacherous current. For the Israelites, the Jordan was the last major obstacle before entering the Promised Land, a land God had sworn to their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Their crossing was not merely a physical journey, but also a deeply spiritual one, representing the culmination of decades of wandering and a transition into a new phase of their covenant relationship with God. The Israelites' journey to the Jordan began many years earlier when they were delivered from slavery in Egypt through the leadership of Moses. After their miraculous escape through the parted waters of the Red Sea, they spent 40 years wandering in the wilderness, a period marked by trials, disobedience, and ultimately the death of Moses. Now, under the leadership of Joshua, Moses' successor, a new generation of Israelites stood on the eastern side of the Jordan, ready to claim their inheritance. God had repeatedly promised Joshua that he would be with him as he had been with Moses, reassuring him, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Joshua 1:9. Joshua, a man of faith and obedience, took God at his word. He began preparing the people for their monumental crossing, knowing that their success depended entirely on God's guidance and power. Before the crossing, Joshua commanded the people to consecrate themselves. This act involved spiritual and physical purification, likely through ceremonial washing, abstaining from sinful behavior, and renewing their focus on God. Joshua told them, "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you." Joshua 3:5. This period of preparation was significant. It emphasized that entering the Promised Land was not just about military conquest or physical possession, but about a spiritual calling. The Israelites were about to experience God's presence and power in an extraordinary way, and they needed to be ready. At dawn, the Israelites broke camp and approached the Jordan River. The priests, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, stepped forward, and as soon as their feet touched the water's edge, the miracle occurred. The Bible describes the event vividly. The water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, while the water flowing down to the Sea of the Arabah, that is, the Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho, Joshua 3:16. The entire nation of Israel crossed the river on dry ground. This included men, women, children, and livestock, a staggering multitude. The priests carrying the ark remained standing in the middle of the riverbed until everyone had crossed safely. This act of faith and obedience on the part of the Israelites was critical. Stepping into a flooded river without any visible evidence of the promised miracle required trust in God's word. The drying of the Jordan's waters echoed the parting of the Red Sea, reminding the Israelites that the same God who had delivered them from Egypt was now leading them into their inheritance. Once the people had crossed, God instructed Joshua to have one man from each of the 12 tribes take a stone from the riverbed. These stones were carried to their camp at Gilgal, where they were set up as a memorial. Joshua explained the purpose of the memorial. "In the future, when your children ask their parents, 'What do these stones mean?' Tell them, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God. Joshua 4:21-24. This memorial served as a tangible reminder of God's faithfulness and power. It was a way to ensure that future generations would remember the miraculous crossing and the covenant relationship between God and his people.